What's up, YouTube? Long time no see. Welcome back. So in this video, I want to talk about a comment that T.I.'s daughter, Deyjah Harris, said in reference to herself and in particular, her natural hair texture. So Deyjah posted via Twitter, social media, the following. I hate to say / admitted, but I'm sad that I have my dad's hair texture. Sad because it's so much to deal with / manage. Ugh. Sad because I feel like it just doesn't fit me, nor is this texture one that's appreciated or uplifted as much as the other hair textures. So let's kind of dig into that comment right quick. So Deyjah has said something that I don't think is completely a surprise if we're being truthful and real about this. I think that within the community, there are some people who have issues with certain hair textures. Well, in particular, let's just be real, issues with 4C hair texture, especially 4C hair texture on women and children. You know, if the child is male, then there's some leniency there. But for definitely issues with 4C hair texture on women and girls. And it's not just the women and girls themselves who have issues with it. It's also uh, men and boys who have issues with it. But for this video, I most likely am going to concentrate more so on the women and girls having issues with their own hair texture. But I'll also touch on the other aspect of that, the men and the boys having issues with it as well. But I will say I do commend Deyjah for being honest and being truthful and being transparent about something like this, because a lot of times I think that there are some women, particularly some black women, who do have a dislike for their natural hair texture. They won't admit it. They'll find ways to sidestep it, to hide it, to conceal it, to make it seem like it's not what it is. But it's like we kind of see it. And it's like, yeah, of course, no one's saying that you can't have fun with wigs and weaves and stuff like that. And also, just a sidebar, I really try not to get into these type of conversations about, black women in weaves, black women in wigs, black women and their hair texture. I really try not to get into that. Not saying that it's not a conversation that's worth having, because it is definitely, but you know, I just feel like I'm probably not the best person to be heading that conversation. And also it's a sensitive subject for many people, you know. And she also mentions that she said that she has her dad's hair texture. And that's something that I think some people seem to not pick up on, which is kind of like well, maybe they do, but the low key and sometimes high key masculinization of textured hair, specifically 4C hair texture. A lot of times people like to, both men and women, try to put that into like quote unquote a masculine category, which does not do any justice for the women and young girls who have that hair texture, which further creates a dislike and a disdain in those women and girls who feel like, hey, I have a hair texture that is considered to be masculine. But I think when people do this, they're oftentimes not really conscious of it. It is, I think, a lot of times like a subconscious thing. Yeah. And a lot of times they seem to attribute their 4C hair texture to their father, like their father's side of the family, or just their father in general. Um, Interesting. And she also mentions that it's so much to deal with and to manage, even though hair itself is a job to manage. Um, but I can imagine 4C hair texture being, more to manage. You know, I, had some experience as far as like when I did have like, a lot of hair on my head, as far as like the managing aspect of it, detangling it was like a job in itself, probably taking like 30 minutes to an hour to detangle at some points. And she said that she's sad because she feels like it just doesn't fit her, nor is this texture one that is appreciated or uplifted as much as other hair textures. So she feels that 4C hair texture does not fit her. You know. And I do think it is possible for people's natural hair texture should just not be as good as a look as other hair textures on them. Um, and that's just across the board, right? Just, in all groups of people, right? And as well, all groups of people do, have issues when it comes to maybe them liking or disliking their natural hair texture. That's true, but I do think in cases like this, when it comes to like black people, especially black women, I do think there's more to it than just a preference because of the whole racist aspect to it. And that's something that, I don't want to sweep under the rug or overlook. And she also mentions that other hair textures, or her hair texture isn't really appreciated or uplifted as much as other hair textures. And, this is, where I guess we can pull in the black boys and men. Um, and, you always have these dudes, not all, but, a segment of dudes coming out saying that, they love natural hair texture on black women, black women's natural hair texture. And I'm not saying that they're completely lying, although sometimes I do feel like it's like a performance to appear to be self-loving, to appear to be pro-black, and to also alleviate blame off of them. It's sometimes there's some game being run in there too. Let's not act like it's not. But I'll also say that there are black men out there who do love, appreciate, like like black women with natural hair textures, right? And then also a bit of a sidebar here, you do gotta be able to decipher because sometimes these dudes will say, "Oh yeah, natural," but they're looking at like, oh, quote unquote like biracial curl girl natural, you know, the biracial curls type of natural versus like the 4C type of natural, right? And when I say biracial curls, more like the loosely textured curls. And I know somebody gonna come in and say, not all biracials got that hair texture. You being texturist. And I'm not trying to be texturist, but I am trying to point something out, and I have to call something something in order to point it out. Yeah. Um, but yeah, of course, there are biracial people who do have 4C hair texture, definitely. And then there are some black people who have loosely textured hair. So, you know, I just wanted to put that out there. But as far as this hair texture not being appreciated or uplifted, I think black men do a great job of uplifting black women's bodies, right? Definitely. There's no doubt that the sisters know what the brothers like when it comes to that, right? You know, I mean, you can't turn on a rap song or even an R&B song without hearing a mention of some black woman's body and some black women's, um, you know, cakes looking full baked, right? So we know that, right? We know that black men can't uplift black women, right? We know that. We have a good example of that, right? But when it comes to the hair texture part, we really don't have a strong example of that, right? And some people try and point out the outliers and the exceptions to the rule. But again, the exceptions do not make the rule, right? We don't see the 4C hair texture being pushed like we see in like the black woman with back, right? We don't see that being pushed like that, right? And again, not saying that no one likes it, not saying that no one appreciates it, not saying that no one sees the value and the beauty in it. Definitely not, but I'm saying it's not being pushed. So let's not try and run that game either. Whereas all like, oh, so many of the black men out there that love the sisters with the natural hair texture. We love the sisters' natural hair textures. We do, we do, we do. So let's not try and just make it seem like it's more people than what it is. That's all. Let's just be real. All right. And also, Deyjah goes on to speak about some more things about in this tweet that she makes. She goes on to say that she, goes out of her way to compliment sisters with other hair textures. She attempts to uplift, black women with 4C type hair because she know how it feels to genuinely not like her hair texture. She says that she never wants anyone to feel like that. It looks so bomb on other people, but not me. Yeah, no. So at least she's trying to be positive, I guess, right? In a way, and trying to at least push that forward. And that's something to think about too. It's like when you do see black women with their natural hair textures, like 4C hair, out and about in your day to day life, how do you view them? Right? Do you view them positively? Do you view them negatively? If you do view them positively, do you give them a compliment? I think giving compliments would be sort of like a small but extremely helpful way to help, perpetuate a positive mindset in black women when it comes to their natural 4C hair texture. It's not anything that is you don't have to do a whole lot. You don't have to move heaven and earth to do that. It's just a compliment. But she also goes on to say that she has received derogatory comments in the past about her hair, like being called, nappy or too thick. And I'll say that Deyjah is a lighter skinned um, black young black woman. And I mentioned that because some people brought up that maybe they feel like Deyjah feels some type of a way about not being quote unquote maybe the ideal light skinned woman and not fitting into that archetype, that category. And there could be some truth in that, you know, Because people do try and live up to their stereotypes, at least the positive ones, probably the negative ones too, but the positive ones definitely, where it's like, oh, we expect you to be this type of, like, to look this way. Like, for example, like, black women, black women are expected to have big booties, right? And I think the black women who don't fit into that sometimes feel some type of a way and feel like they need to fit into that because that's what people expect of them. So that's why you do kind of have that whole like BBL craze that's going around right now. A lot of black women getting BBLs, right? Because they want to fit into what people's expectations of them are. And also, someone questioned Deyjah's sincerity as far as her compliments are concerned. Feeling like, oh, do you give people compliments because you really feel that it's does right? Do you compliment them because you think they don't like it or because you actually like it? That was what one person brought up. And she says that she, quote unquote, genuinely compliments them because, again, growing up, I never heard any compliments or positive comments when it comes to my hair. You know, I'm sure there's some women out there who have 4C hair texture who have felt, um, who probably can relate. And then I'm sure there's some sisters who probably did get compliments, right? um, for the black women out there who are watching, which category did you fall into? She said that she was told that her hair was nappy or too thick and some more ish. I know that made me feel, I know how that made me feel, so I make sure to uplift any and everyone, not just people with type 4 hair, to make sure they never have to experience those feelings or even to just boost their confidence. If they love slash are comfortable with their hair already, it has nothing to do with me thinking that they don't like it, but more so that I want to simply make sure they feel seen, appreciated, respected, and I want them to know that their hair is bomb. I never said anything was wrong with 4C hair. So, yeah, it's a controversial topic. It's a topic that's a bit sensitive and people get into their feelings about it, and understandably so, you know, just because of like the history with people not really seeing it as positive, and also the society that we live in, and, the Eurocentric standards that we have, etc. Yeah. But taking all things into consideration, what do we do when situations like this come up? And I'm asking, what do we do as a community when we do have people, whether they are male or female, you know, children or adults? What do we do when they express that, some issues with 4C hair texture, whether it's directed at themselves or directed at other people? How do we handle that? What should we do? Um, you know, And I don't think that we really have some sort of a solution to that. I just think people just do whatever. It's just, I think it's going to end up being, if it's a man or a boy, it's going to end up being seen as a preference. He can have a preference. Y'all need to stop talking about people just because they don't got the same preference as you. Leave them alone. Leave them young boys alone. Leave them them black men belong too. They have a right to prefer things. Then if it's a girl or a woman who's expressing a disdain or a dislike for 4C hair texture, either her own or someone else's, then folks attack, right? You know, that happened to Cheryl Underwood a while ago. You know, folks attacked her because, you know, she was saying that um, I think Seal and Heidi's biracial children had, like, Heidi saved the hair of her biracial children and her non-biracial children. And Cheryl was like something like, "Oh, you know, I don't know why you saving that hair," you know, something like that. Um, but she got backlash for that, and people, you know, really attacked her. No one saw her as being a victim of the system or the Eurocentric standard of beauty. People saw her as just being a problem. But long story short, I do think that the black community as a whole does have some sort of an issue when it comes to 4C hair texture. Um, and I just think people have to be honest about it if we're going to really address and correct the problem. And that step in itself is going to take some time to get people to honestly say how they feel. And then when we do get an honest answer, we have to act accordingly. We can't be sweeping things under the rug, saying and casting it off as a preference. We have to address it, you know, in a positive, constructive way. We don't have to be negative and attack people, right? But I don't want to go on for too long. I just want to come through and give my thoughts and opinions about that. I know it probably wasn't the most coherent, cohesive video that I made, but I wanted to come through and just, one, touch bases with you guys because I've been gone for a bit of a minute, a little bit of a minute, and also just touch on this topic. But tell me what you guys think about this. Let me know in the comments section. Until the next video, adios and goodbye for now.